Dear friends, there is now a consensus to the fact that the climate change, which we all are experiencing as the citizens of this earth, has to do with anthropogenic causes, meaning these are human beings which are responsible for the climate change. And important reports, important studies which are being commissioned world over, including the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports and International Energy Agency reports. They have offered some insights, and I'm going to discuss those lessons based on the newspapers, recommendations, findings which are being reported in the reputed dailies like Guardian. So, as per the reports which are coming up now, which contains the news item that the IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, sixth assessment report is ready, and some part of it is leaked to the media. We have very interesting but threatening warning. Okay, and the warning is that the global greenhouse gas emissions must peak in the next 4 years, meaning in 2025, we as a globe would have reached the peak in the greenhouse gas emissions. So, what needs to be done and what does the IPCC say about it? That is what we would be discussing in this short lecture. IPCC, that is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, it publishes 3 parts in its reports. The first part always deals with the physical science of climate change. The second part quantifies the impacts because of the climate change. And part 3 of the report is on the mitigation, that is what we need to do in order to reduce the human influence on climate. So the part 3, which has been leaked to the media, it talks about many things along with what are the possibilities in the near term. As per the report, the IPCC report, what we need to do, as I said in the third part, is we need to cut the emissions in the next decade. That is, we need to cut the emissions up to 2030. And if we do not do that, then we won't be in a position to keep the global warming within 1.5 degrees Celsius of pre-industrial level. So the benchmark is we need not cross the threshold of 1.5 degrees of pre-industrial level, and that is possible only if we cut emissions in the next decade up to 2030. And that rate at which the emissions are to be cut, as per the report, is we need to halve the emissions, that is, cut it up to 50% in the very next decade, and to stay within 1.5 degrees Celsius and to reach net zero emissions by 2050. If we are, as a humankind, as human beings, unable to do that, then that would cause climate breakdown, and that, according to IPCC, might lead to widespread devastation. So this is the report coming from a very top body, highly respected body of climate scientists, and we need to be very serious about these findings. What other things does the IPCC report have, the part 3? It talks about the responsibility of these emissions. We said that there are anthropogenic emissions. However, the anthropogenic emissions are related to the consumption patterns. And it is basically the high income consumers, and they contribute more to the carbon footprint. And as a way of data, this very interesting data has been shared, which says that the wealthiest 10% of the population, and they would be concentrated mostly in the developed world, they would be contributing between about 36% to 45% of the emissions. So this is such a huge number. And just to get you a feel of that, about the poorest 10%, they contribute between 3% to 5%. So you see that 1/10 of the contribution, okay, is by the poorest as compared to the wealthiest. And this inequality between the rich and the poor, that is responsible for the high energy consumption pattern of the high income consumers, which leads essentially to large carbon footprints. So my interpretation is that it means that we need to drastically change the economic inequality structurally. The economic inequality has to be changed, and the consumption patterns need to be drastically changed. Why there is a high energy intensity to the high energy group, high income group? The reason is because the high income group customers, they mainly generate the carbon footprints from travel and from comfort, as also from their eating habits. So air travel and the heating and cooling requirements, they stay in conditioned houses, conditioned hotels. Okay, they travel a lot. The aviation is an important factor. So that does, and they have SUVs, huge SUVs. Okay, so that is going to those high income consumers, and obviously they would consume a lot. Okay, in terms of consumption goods. So all these are going to contribute to the emissions. And if you contrast this to the carbon footprint which would be generated, for example, by providing electricity to the people who don't have electricity, and that number is about 800 million according to IPCC, that actually is not going to contribute to emissions. So look at this. We have 800 million who don't have electricity, and even if you provide electricity to them, that is going to have a negligible effect on increasing the emissions, whereas a very small percentage of high income consumers, they contribute a lot to the carbon footprints. So this essentially has to be underlined, that providing basic energy to all is required, and capping the energy use of the high income consumers has to be a part of the policy. Sector-wise, if you look at the emissions, you would find that this steel and cement, aviation and shipping, and heavy-duty road vehicles, these contribute a lot to the carbon footprint, the emissions, the energy consumption, and these sectors are difficult to decarbonize. So we are now talking about electric vehicles. We are not talking about replacing the fossil fuels with green energy, and all these technologies are possible. Okay, however, looking at the energy intensity of the sectors like steel and cement, and also looking at the power which would go into the heavy duty road vehicles, there would be a technology restriction as of now in decarbonizing this sector. So a major way of decarbonizing would be to curtail the consumption, capping the consumption of these goods which are energy intensive and carbon intensive goods. So a sectoral understanding of this is also very crucial if something has to be done to address this vital issue of climate change. Just to get you a feel that how this aviation contributes to the carbon footprint, this data which has been published again by a reputed newspaper and which cites Germany NGO's calculation. It says that if you do a round trip, a return trip from London to New York, then approximately 1,000 kgs of CO2 is emitted per passenger. So to be exact, 986 kgs of CO2 is emitted per passenger. And if you look at the CO2 which is generated by the low income countries, say if you take together some 56 low income countries in Africa, and if you look at the average consumption, average generation of the carbon footprint per capita, in the entire year, that is the annual carbon footprint is even less than 986. So that is the inequality, okay? And that is the contribution of aviation to the carbon footprint. So is the case with another example, which is the London to Rome return trip, which generates about 230 kgs of CO2 per passenger. And to just give us an idea of the inequality, this is equivalent to the annual carbon footprint of an average person in about 17 countries. Okay, so sectorally, how we are going to address this, whether the markets are going to take care of that it's very difficult to tell. Another reputed agency which I want to quote, whose recent report has come and has been widely reported in the print. It says that if you want to achieve net zero emissions by 2050, then we need to do these things urgently. And what are those? We need to phase out both the coal power as well as polluting vehicles. We need to have no new fossil fuel cars to be sold beyond 2035. And we need to have global electricity from renewables by 2040. These things, along with the fact that the population is going to increase by 2 billion, and we need to also provide electricity to about 785 million people worldwide, along with the clean cooking fuel to about 2.6 billion people. That interventions would require $40 billion per year, especially the clean cooking part. And even for providing electricity and providing clean cooking, as I said in the last slide, I said that this is going to have a negligible contribution in the emission scenario. Okay, so for this, as well as to make sure that the zero emissions, net zero emissions are reached by 2050, they talk about a radical shift from coal power and from polluting vehicles. So this is what the International Energy Agency is saying. They are talking about investing a lot in the clean energy, and they are forecasting that because the oil demand, because from the shift towards the maybe electric vehicles, there will be a drop in the oil demand from 90 million barrels a day to 24 million barrels a day by 2050. This is the number they are giving. So which is a drastic drop, less than 1/3 would be the oil consumption. That is a projection. And so we need not go for additional investments in coal and gas fields, neither in coal mines. So this is what the International Energy Agency is saying. All in all, what is required, according to me, to tackle this issue of climate changes, while doing all this interventions for climate change, we need to keep in mind the historic differences in emissions between the different countries. So the developed world has contributed a lot to the emissions, and they have the historic responsibility in emissions. So those historic differences are to be kept in mind. There is also, if you do a carbon footprint calculations, the differences between urban and rural will be stark. We also mentioned about the carbon footprint differences as per the economic profile of an individual. We said that there is a growing economic inequality between the rich and poor, and there is a tremendous carbon footprint contributed by the rich. So if you want to really address this issue of climate change, not only the technology interventions, but also a shift towards a transition towards an equal society would be necessary, because what is being talked about is now horizontal growth, which is a distributive growth and not vertical growth, along with the shift towards the clean energy. So this, I guess, this kind of intervention should be sustainable. This should lead us to an equal society, and a more egalitarian world, and maybe more generations of human mankind can survive this planet because of such kind of interventions. Thank you very much.